the library report, and then I won't say anything later.
I think it'd be a great segue. Go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you. I asked our librarian, Susie Gutenberger, had put all this together for our last meeting, and I asked them to send it over because it's quite impressive. Our library is less than 10 years old. It is one of the newest libraries in the state of New York. And to have over 8,000 people come into the library last year, this is just last year, and take out 81,115 items, I think is just incredible. And hopefully everybody who lives in our town has visited our library, has a library card. If you haven't, I truly recommend it in the summer because it has wonderful air conditioning. And there are many, many homes in Lansing that do not. And so it's a place to hang out. And also, if you do not have good internet connection, it has many, many free computers. And it is, of course, connected to the Finger Lakes library system, and you can get almost any book you can imagine from this humongous system. So I'm very proud to be a member of the Board of Trustees of the library, and very, very happy we have this right across the parking lot from the town hall.
Okay. Having said that, Michael?
Hi.
Hi, Mike.
Thanks for having me. I like the library too. It's one of the only public meeting spaces in the town, so it's nice to have it there. Thanks again for having me. We do have some big news from the county this month. We had a new county administrator. So as you know, Joe Mariana did retire after 10 years. We have hired, we offered and he accepted, Jason Molino. He is the former city manager of the city of Batavia, New York. He is now our county administrator. He just took over last night. And he has 4 children. He is moving down here with his wife and 4 children. They will start school here and everything. And he has solid experience in budgets. He has worked with labor and contracts and knows how to work with many departments at once. He has a master's in public administration from Rockefeller College of Public Affairs and Policy, University of Albany, State University of New York, and a Bachelor of Arts in Political Science from Norwich University, Northfield, Vermont. Also, another big move in the county, Catherine Katie Bordelis. She has been named the county's Commissioner of Planning and Sustainability. She will be replacing Ed Marks, who left over the summer. She has been in that department for 24 years, and she is a trained civil engineer and has a bachelor's degree in civil engineering from the University of Vermont and a master's degree in natural resources from Cornell University. In other news, so we are actually going to be looking for 2 deputies now. We have added another deputy that was going to help out from the county administrator, so we're going to have 2. Paula Younger, though, has resigned. She was the interim county administrator since mid-November when Joe left. She is now going to take a job at the college. She's going to be doing kind of like your government liaison work, a little bit like Gary Stewart does with Cornell. So we're excited for her. She was pretty excited about that job, and we're glad that she's actually staying in the county. In other news, just some votes. The legislature by a vote of 11-2. We went on record in supporting the quality of internet access, net neutrality, obviously a national issue. This is the regulation of the internet as a public utility under Title II of the Federal Communications Act. The internet will now be classified under Title I. In a pretty lonely camp on this issue. Obviously, it was 11-2 with Manager Dennis voting against this maneuver. I just believe that, to explain myself a little bit, right now 90% of all the searches on the internet are done by Google. We've basically self-segregated Google, Facebook. Netflix controls 37%. Of the broadband right now. They are using 37%. So I think we've kind of missed the boat on this issue. Everybody's been concentrating on net neutrality, and you now have about 4 companies that have eaten up the internet. So during my discussion of that, I actually called for a breakup of those 4 companies because I would like to see our federal government use a little bit of its antitrust muscle to better distribute the access to the net and to distribute the amount of size that they kind of consume. And there are other countries doing this, like Australia, And Europe is also looking at how just certain companies have complete control now over large segments of the internet. Also, the legislature, by unanimous vote, we authorized the county administrator to execute a memorandum of understanding with the participants of the Tompkins County Center of History and Culture. This is moving forward. As you know, we bought the bank, the Tompkins County Trust Company Bank, down on the Commons. They are building their new bank right down there next to the hotel there. So we bought their old bank, and we're going to make that into the History Center. This is actually pretty remarkable. Lansingite Jen Tavares, who's also the head of the chamber, had a lot to do with this. The county won $1.4 million in grants. This is part of the latest New York State Consolidated Funding grant process. So we got a lot of money from the state from this, and we're going to put in some money too, but this is definitely going forward, and it should be beautiful when it's done. I mean, some of the partners that we're talking to are like an aviation museum that's going to be in there. There's going to be maybe a visitor center in there. It'll be an interesting complex when that's all done. It'll be right there in the Commons too. We do have 5 new legislators joining the legislature, and I also think, I don't think I'm speaking out of turn here, but I think the leadership of the legislature is going to change. There's going to be a vote on that, obviously, at our first meeting. So we should look for a change in that and see what becomes of it. It should be just an interesting year. There are a lot of changes, and we do have a lot of large projects, including the sale of the old library. That's happening this week. I think we're closing on Friday. So that will be developed into by Travis High. So that'll be an interesting project going forward. That is about it. So with that, I want to thank you for having me. Happy holidays, and everybody have a happy New Year.
Thank you. Thank you. Does the board have any comments or questions for Michael? You look good tonight, bud.
Thanks. I just gave him a party, and the county had his little party. I do want, in leaving, I want to thank Robert Creek for his service. I know he's leaving the board, obviously, and thank you so much for everything you've done.
Thank you.
I think that because of some of your guidance and leadership on budgeting, we have a much better grasp of budgeting at the town level than we did before your service. So that's a great job.
Nothing else? Thank you, Mike.
All right. Thank you.
Now, before we entertain a motion to open the public hearing, a little housekeeping done here first. There are the sign-in sheets, and there might be some confusion on which category that you would like to speak on tonight. We have one for the proposed final draft of the comprehensive plan, one for the proposed Cargill mine shaft number 4 special use permit, and also one of this to claim privilege of the floor. As we go through each one of these, I will look at the names here, and if someone wants to comment that perhaps has not signed up, feel free to do that when other people have already commented. But just to address the potential confusion there, that if we're on the Cargill one and you said, oh gosh, I thought it would be the comprehensive plan, feel free to come to that one also. The other thing is that before we get into the Cargill public hearing, I'll ask Guy for a comment of clarity, if you want to do that now.
Just to make clear for the town board and the resolution that the entire proceedings and records of the planning board are a part of what is here. That you're actually reviewing their site plan recommendations and their recommendations relative to the special use permit. The special use permit is issued by the town. So you're taking an entire record and reviewing it, and then, as I think has been recommended, adopting the recommendations that they put forth and putting them in your special use permit. It makes perfect sense when you see it on paper, but just people in the audience may not know that the planning board's record is a part of the town's record, the town board's review. So, just to be clear.
Thank you. And before we open our public hearing, we have a brief presentation from Cargill. Now, this is a presentation that has been similar to the one, if not for the planning board's benefit. And I thought it appropriate that people here tonight also see this information.
1 second to get this booted up.
Do you want the lights on now?
I think it projects okay, but we can turn them down if that would help.
you want the ones up here turned down maybe?
Just the one on the right.
How's that?
I think that's pretty clear. So for you, those of you who don't know me, my name is Bill Graycon. I'm a senior project manager with Cargill. And tonight, obviously, we'll be talking about the surface facilities at the 4-shaft project for Cargill. And obviously, the people up on the board here are the reason why we're doing this project, the whole drive behind this project. Cargill employs over 200 people at that site full-time. We have over 150 people who work underground on a very regular basis. So with this shaft going forward, the big push from Cargill side is we'll be able to get fresh air to our workers, to our miners. We'll be able to help them with a cooler working environment, and we'll also be able to get them escapeway 30 minutes or more closer to where they're currently working. And as you think about that, you'll hear that probably from a number of people. As you think about that 30 minutes in the context of a medical emergency, how important that could be in someone's life. As we look at this, really what we're looking at is the 58 acres on 1001 Ridge Road. This is actually a great property. One of the reasons that Cargill purchased it was because it's much larger than what we needed. And it's also very well bounded by vegetation and trees, which helps from a visual screening side and from a noise generation side. The red outline that you're seeing on this is the affected surface area, which is 12.3 acres of the 58 total, so that's somewhere around 20% of the total acreage will be affected of the total parcels. If you look at kind of the highlight overview of what we're proposing to build here, is there's about 4 buildings on the site. There'll be the admin building, which you can see here. That's just a low-slung building that will have shower rooms and offices in it. The area labeled the collar house will surround the shaft. And the intention of that building is to minimize any kind of noise generation around the shaft. It'll allow us, if we have to move a pallet or something, all the noise will be contained. That building is insulated for noise. The hoist house building sitting here will house the mechanical and electrical equipment for the elevator that runs up and down the shaft. And then there's a small 2,000 square foot shop on that. And this is oriented kind of north-south. This road coming in is 1,000 feet long from Ridge Road back to this hoist house, so this sits in that backfield of the property. So we just have about 8-10 slides today, and so this is just laid out around obviously the items that the town board has to look at as part of this land use ordinance. The first one is around protecting public health and safety and general welfare. Obviously that was part of the site plan approval also. So this site will be completely fenced around any of the workings, and we'll start that fencing immediately during construction. We'll have fire protection on the buildings. There will be RFID entry for our employees with a gate arm, drop arm, so we can restrict access to only the people that are supposed to be at that site. The next item here is around no injury to the surrounding property values. Obviously this project, as you'll see as we go through this, if you haven't seen it, has been designed to blend into the environment, blend with the local farms. The property is well screened, and it only affects that 21% of the total acreage. From there, looking at that, obviously since we made this announcement in 2012 that we were considering doing this shaft, there's been information out there on the websites. And there has not been a decrease in home values. Properties continue to sell in that area. There's a number of new homes that have been built in that area. If you look at the lower right hand there, that's just a cut from Zillow of the recently sold homes in that region. Along with what look like log cabins on this are new homes that have been built. The red star is our proposed site location. The next land use ordinance you need to look at is around the adequate landscaping and screening. Obviously that was covered also during the site plan review and by the state during their permitting review. We did a number of different things over the years to really understand what this property would look like. We're early in the process, being visual people, we put up a 100-foot flagpole just to see what that would look like. Green flag there was at 100. yellow was at 80, and the red was at 60. And we left that up for 6 months just to get a feeling for what that would look like in the neighborhood. And really, you had a very lightly screened view from Ross Road, but it was not visible from other locations. We also, as part of the permitting process, we did these 3D renderings you see on the right side. Number 1 is off of Ridge Road, and that is the picture on the left is the before, picture on the right is the proposed buildings. Anything in yellow, you'd obviously be able to see once it was built. Anything in green would be shaded by vegetation or the lay of the land. And so as part of that site plan review, we looked at it from Ross Road and from Swayze Road also. And this property sits very well, just the way that lays downhill and is screened by the vegetation. There's very limited sight lines on this property. The next item on the special use permit was around traffic flows. Obviously, as part of the DEC permitting, there was a number of traffic studies done. The total increase past the driveway at peak times is less than 10% by that traffic study, and that's taking a worst case scenario that everyone would be coming from the south. When you really think about it, this is all the same employees. There's no new traffic. It's just a relocation from our current site at 191 Portland Point Road for some of the employees further up the road. So anyone coming out of the north down 90 actually would travel less through Lansing. The next one talks about excessive erosion or increased volume of surface runoff. So we spent a lot of time around this. Obviously, there's always concern when you're building around the water flows. So as part of our plans, the DEC looked at this during their negative declaration of environmental impact. The town's engineer, T.G. Miller, also reviewed the stormwater pollution prevention plans. We made some slight changes to even make this a more conservative plan through their guidance. And as this has been designed, there's rain gardens in it to help filter out particulates, kind of all the best new technology bioretention areas. So as you look at this, these 2 green areas are the bioretention areas, or rain gardens, as they're commonly called. The blue areas are the catch ponds. And so what you're seeing on that left-hand chart there is the rain inflow. So this left column calling it existing outfall flow is saying during a 100-year storm currently, no changes to the property as it sits today. There's 16 cubic feet per second flowing off this property downhill. With our proposed changes, our proposed collection and rain gardens and the ponding, even during a 100-year storm, we're going to have a 55% reduction in off-site flow that will help our downhill neighbors reduce the erosion downhill. So overall, we're positively affecting this site even in a 100-year flow. The next item on the list was around the water and sewer systems. This property there's the water district, town water district, sits on the front edge of this property, goes back 300 feet. So we've requested to be added to that water district. All the sewage from this site will be handed through a packaged wastewater treatment plant that's been permitted by the DEC, and the on-site wastewater treatment system permit is currently sitting with Tompkins County to be finalized. Next one, we've got this split up into 2 slides just because there's a lot in there. Looking at the noise portion of it, obviously there's been a lot of noise studies on this. And again, we went out there, our engineers took the worst case scenario. They looked at it at noon on our site, kind of our worst, busiest time of day at our current site, and they projected that noise onto the site at 2 a.m. out in the middle of nowhere where it's very quiet. And looking, due to that great vegetation and the great lay of the land, we only had one receptor, so a receptor is a house, one receptor that was shown to have any effect at all. That's labeled R1. You can see the other receptors are all these red dots you can see without. R1 had a 2 decibel change, which is a decibel below the DEC threshold. And in the meantime, Cargill actually purchased that property, so that is now that R1 is now a Cargill property. We didn't purchase for that reason, but it worked out very well. So all the other receptors are showing zero change as part of that town level study. Light and glare, obviously this is we tried to work with the Dark Sky Initiative as part of the town plans. So there are no lights on that inbound road, that first 1,000 feet from Ridge Road back, there's no lights on that road. We do have parking lot lights, which you can see in the red circles here, and what the light will look like is here. The engineers went out there and found the best lights out there for a site like this. So they're LED, which are low power, and they are smart lights, so they dim down to 10% power, just minimal power. If nobody's in the area, as soon as there's motion in the area, they will crank on just while people are in that area, and then they'll crank back down to 10% power to minimize any glare in that area. The only other exterior lights on this property are all down lights, just at the building exits. Those are required for safety by code, but they're part of that Dark Sky Initiative type of lighting. So just an overview of everything we've done. Obviously, Cargill has worked at this for over 3 years before we submitted any paperwork, doing the environmental assessment forms through SECRA. That covers water, traffic, and everything we've talked about today, noise, air. It even goes further with the cultural and fish and wildlife. From there was a permit that the New York State DEC as lead agency took over a year of review and discussions with us. And from that, they determined that this project would have a negative declaration of environmental impact, and their statement was this project will not result in significant adverse environmental impacts. From there, we went through multiple public comment periods before the DEC finally issued this permit modification as a lead agency. We've also obviously been through, as Guy had talked about, the planning board unanimously approved the site plan for this in November. And through their processes and through the town processes, we've also worked with your engineer, T.G. Miller, on the SWPPP plans. And we've done worked with the Tompkins County Department of Planning and Sustainability on their 239 review. And from that, they concluded there'd be no negative intercommunity or countywide impacts. So we tried to go fairly quick tonight. Are there any outstanding questions? I know most people in the room have seen this. Any questions from the board?
How will it be heated? What is the source?
It is a propane heat. Yes. And so the big building around the shaft will not be heated, so it'll just be the office, equipment heat in the hoist room, and the maintenance shop will be heated. We won't heat the large collar house building that you saw.
Did you look into heat pump technology?
We have had discussion about that. We do have our engineer here, Matt. Any?
No, we didn't.
Okay.
No, we just do, energy efficient equipment as a standard. So it's really, the major heat source is going to be shower, water for the shower, so.
Other questions? Thank you.
Thank you, Bill.
Thank you.
So you said that, well, I'd like to open the public hearing first, then we can have questions, okay, comments. Someone like to entertain a motion to open our public hearing?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second. Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I guess we'll go in order here. As I said earlier, for the people who came in late, that we have 3 different sheets here to sign up, and we'll go through this very methodically. And the first one will be the proposed Cargill mine shaft number 4. I've asked Cargill to come here in case people have questions. I couldn't think of anybody better to answer them than people here. So you may direct your comments to us, but if there is an appropriate answer that needs to be conveyed, I would ask Cargill to entertain that. and I will not forget you, okay, on here. But I'd like to go through this in a systematic way. So the first person we have here on a public hearing sign-in sheet is Douglas Smith.
Hello, y'all.
Hi.
My name is Doug Smith. I worked for Cargill for 27 years. Matter of fact, my family worked for Cargill over 20 years altogether. My involvement with the community is over 20 years of volunteering. My annual review at Cargill consists of coaching in many different sports. One of the donations was a high jump pit for Lansing School, costing over $8,000 at no taxpayer's cost. This pit allows us to keep our athletes safe when jumping onto it. This is one of the examples that Cargill does for our community, and they do many more others. Safety is always our top priority, in or out of work. As a hoist operator, the number 4 shaft project is most important to me because it provides more clean air for the workers, and also it's my job, it's literally my job, I've been doing it for a long time, to bring my fellow co-workers in and out of the mine shaft safely so that they can be home with their families at the end of the day. For example, we provide salt for the roads so that you can go to work and back home safely to be with your families at the end of your day. This vote is not just about construction, but for me, safety and my coworkers, and to allow Cargill to continue the operation that saves lives for our community and throughout New York State. I urge you to support the number 4 project. Thank you for your time and happy holidays.
Thank you.
I'll apologize in advance if I butcher anybody's name. Next one is James, looks like, is it Mulsey? Mulsey.
Ladies and gentlemen of the board, I appreciate your time and also this exercise of democracy. First thing on my agenda this evening is to read a statement that was read before the planning board by Mr. Adam Rosbeck, who could not be here tonight. Many of the things that he states in here I can resonate with in my own life, but we will proceed. My name is Adam Rosbeck. I've worked underground at Cargill for over 16 years. I've been on the mine rescue team for more than 12 of those years. Since I started at Cargill in 2001, the mine has about doubled in size. I have personally seen the efforts of Cargill to keep pushing the air out to the faces and keep the air quality safe for us to breathe. It has become increasingly difficult to keep fresh air to all the working panels where it is needed. Allowing us to advance on this project is vital to the health and safety of everyone, every miner underground. Cargill is an important part of this community. Through its volunteer hours and charitable donations, Cargill helps to keep this a great community. Cargill not only helps out in this community, but in many surrounding communities as well, from building and maintaining Little League ball fields to donating infrared cameras to local fire departments. I didn't grow up in Lansing, and neither did I. I grew up and currently live in Cuba County with my wife and young son. He was 3 months old when he took his first swim in Cuba Lake last summer. When I was younger, I spent many summer days at Long Point State Park, swimming with my cousins and at countless family barbecues. Days spent on Cuba Lake are some of my best memories from my childhood. Memories I have every intention of helping my son make as he is growing up. So you see, the lake is just as important to us as it is to you. In closing, I sincerely hope to get your support for the number 4 shaft project. Not only for Cargill, but for the health and safety of us miners, the benefits to this community in which we all live and work, and the livelihood it provides to over 200 employees. Adam says here that he's been associated with the mine for 16 years. On a personal note, my dad worked for Highway Materials when it was strictly the Cuba mine before Cargill owned it. Highway Materials offered employment to many local truckers hauling rock salt away from the Cuba mine. My own personal involvement with the mine, I've been an employee for 7 years, but prior to that, for approximately 23 years, I was involved in contracting on the site. And the size and scope of the projects that Cargill has provided to the contractors in this area has been vital to our success and to our survival. This project coming up will be no exception to that. And last but not least, this site is vital to us, as Adam said, because of the air that we need to be able to mine. And in my position, I'm responsible for the electrical system, and we really need a new power supply further up the lake because we're struggling every day to keep the power going and the lights on. So at this plant, there will be a substation that will enable us to be much more effective in our work. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Third commentator is Brian Barlow.
Good evening. My name is Brian Barlow. I've been employed at the Cuba mine for over 38 years. I've been in the area all my life, 15 years. I lived here in Lansing. My 3 children attended Lansing schools. They continue to live in town and are now raising our 3 grandchildren while continuing to enjoy the benefits and privileges the community offers. Our mine and employees provide a necessary product that's crucial to the safety of all motorists, both personal and commercial, across the northeastern United States. In my 38 years, I've seen many changes, but none as significant as our increased dedication to the safety of our employees and the protection of the environment. Evidence of these efforts is present in the following. It's been over 7.5 years since an employee has sustained an injury requiring that they miss time from work. That's a remarkable achievement in any industry. We were awarded the National Sentinels of Safety Award as the safest mine in our class in both 2011 and 2013, with nominations also in 2015 and 2016. Most mines would cherish a single nomination, let alone being chosen as the recipient. We are recognized by our district federal employment inspectors as being one of the best in the mining industry, as we consistently go beyond the minimum requirements of the law. Many of our safety practices and innovations are suggested by inspectors to other mines. These results don't just happen. They're a product of the commitment and dedication of the company and of every individual employee adhering to sound practices. Cargill's demonstrated commitment is also evident in the planning efforts for the number 4 shaft and surface facilities. And this project is necessary for 2 key safety reasons. To provide better ventilation to the workers in the mine every shift of every day, and to provide timely egress from the mine in case of emergency evacuation, personal injury, or personal illness. Currently, it can take as long as an hour before professional care is available. Number 4 shaft will provide for exiting the mine in minutes, 15 or less in most cases. Be assured that as employees of Cargill, we are members of this community and are very cognizant of the importance of environmentally safe practices near Cuba Lake. We all enjoy living in this area, and we respect the natural beauty that surrounds us. This project isn't born from corporate greed, as some may wish you to think. Instead, it's a necessary project that will allow us to maintain and further our commitment to the safety of the people who go a half mile underground each day to perform their difficult yet important work. I encourage you to vote in favor of supporting this project, allowing our employees the opportunity to work under conditions most people take for granted every day at their workplace. Breathing adequate clean air, being able to exit in a reasonable amount of time in emergency situations, and in the event of injury or illness, they have professional care available at the earliest possible moment. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next is David, is it Plumo?
Yes.
Yeah, they're freshmen.
One quarter.
That's enough. Go ahead.
Thank you. My name is David Plamo, and I've worked at the mine for 41 years as an engineer and engineering supervisor. And as such, I believe that I am a member of the Lansing community. I want to thank the town board for serving the town of Lansing, for being diligent in your work, and for allowing us to comment on this project. For my entire career, I've worked toward and been part of Cargill's continuous improvement of the Cayuga mine. We've done our best at long-range planning for the health and sustainability of the mining operation and of its employees. We began planning for a possible shaft over 10 years ago and finally secured land for it in 2012. We wanted a property large enough that we would have a substantial buffer around our surface facilities so that we don't intrude on the neighborhood. We get it. People live on Ross, George, and Swayze roads because it is their little piece of heaven on earth, and we don't want to degrade their enjoyment of their land. For that reason, the nearest home to the project is about 800 feet away, and that's on purpose. Excuse me. Cargill has always tried to do the right thing, so we began meeting with the neighbors 5 years ago to explain what we plan to do and to hear their concerns. We've tried to address those concerns in the best way possible in the design of the facilities and the planning of the construction. We've addressed noise, traffic, visual impact, runoff, groundwater, and other possible impacts on our neighbors, and have developed the facility to minimize or eliminate those impacts. The project meets or exceeds all the codes required by the town and the state, and we've tried to design the site to be as invisible to the local community as the barns and businesses that are nearby. I urge you to approve the special use permit so that the mine can provide the ventilating air and better egress that the miners need. Thank you.
Next is Austin. Austin. The last thing's pronounced?
The group didn't help.
I thought so, but I wasn't quite sure.
Good evening. I have a speech prepared, but I'm just going to kind of speak here. Been working for Cargill for not quite 2 years now. Prior to Cargill, I worked in New Mexico for 5 years. For Cargill, I work in engineering, particularly mine ventilation. And the truth is that Cargill really cares. We're sinking a new shaft, spending an obscene amount of money to do so in order to provide better fresh air to the active workings, as well as decrease the amount of time it's going to take for our people to get out from underground in case there's an emergency. We care. We care about the community. We've done many measures to prevent our footprint and for people to even know that we're there, as you see from Mr. Creighton's presentation. And in all reality, how much different is this from, say, a small trade school or Target going up? We're going above and beyond, in my opinion, in design and maintaining good public opinion on the matter. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Does anyone else want to make a public comment? And please come to the table. I would just like to have your name so I can just put it in on the sheet. I know you had a question? Sure.
Carrie Copeland-Hilaire. I live at 118 Ross Road. We're adjacent to the proposed shaft 4, share about a quarter of a mile of boundary. And I've had some conversations with both Sean Lazinski and Dave Plamo. And they've been pretty forthright in explaining their project to us, given that we're close neighbors. Two of the things that Cargill might consider, and I'm hoping that they will, on a voluntary basis, is to insulate the collar house. They don't need to do that for heat retention, but it could really help with the noise. And there are these receptors, which is human beings that live nearby. And so that could be extremely helpful for public relations. And the second is that they're going to have a series of check dams that are created around the perimeter of the property during the construction phase. by their contractors. And these could be retained legally afterwards if Cargill and B&L choose to do that. And one of the benefits of doing that would be distributing and mitigating water flow. Right now, the water is being channeled into the ponds that were being described, but I think it could be helpful if those check dams were kept in place after construction, given that there are very erodible slopes and natural areas downhill that lead directly to Hugo Lake. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
Can't help myself.
Sure.
My name is Sean Wolfensky. I couldn't afford to live in Lansing, so I lived in the village of Lansing when I moved back. But I have the privilege of being the mine manager for the Cargill facility. I believe that the employees here put it in a much more passionate way than I could. And I think sometimes that we've learned, unfortunately in the past year, I've learned that some people expect me to lie because I'm the manager of a major facility, and therefore my credibility sometimes goes out the window with that. First and foremost, I want to thank this board for the diligence in which they did. Most people have either toured the mine, chosen to the mine, or answered phone calls and have asked questions to learn as much about this project as they possibly could to make an informed decision. You're amongst a very small group of people that have demonstrated that amount of professionalism basis of my experience in the past year. As some may know, the mines had a presence in this area for over 100 years. Cargill was only owned for 47. As we've heard many times, Cargill strives to be the best neighbor possible. That started 5 years ago by reaching out to the town board at that time so we could be transparent, as well as the neighbors. Okay, so this has been out in front of people for a long time. We understand our neighbors and residents want their peace, quiet, and privacy, and I hope Mr. Graycon's presentation helped to explain on how we're achieving that. I personally am proud to work for a company like Cargill. Cargill's gotten for a long time that you need to be more than just an employer to be a responsible partner in your community. So that you should strive to be more than just an employer, which means look for what your area needs and then provide that. And in many cases, that presents itself in volunteer activities, reducing environmental impacts, improving the safety of not just for employees, but many, as Jim said, many contractors that work for us now have safer working practices because of their relationships with Cargill. Okay. As the manager of a major facility in the town, I've been watching the evolution of the comprehensive plan quite closely. I remember sitting here back in 2014 looking at the survey results, and we completely understand that the residents wish to retain the rural agricultural feel. I think the other thing that I found surprising was that if you look at all the acreage in the town of Lansing, right, 41,300 or 835 acres, 97% of that acreage is either rural agricultural, wetlands, vegetation, and or residential. So 88% is pretty much farmland, vegetation, wetlands, abandoned, rural, 9% residential. 97% of the entire town of Lansing then falls into those two categories. 1.8% is industrial commercial. That's only, at that time, based on the 2012 data, that was only 758 acres out of 41,000. Okay, this change of 12 acres from rural agricultural to industrial has a 0.03% net change in the industrialization for here, right? Although a small acreage, I want to remind people of the larger impacts that Cargill also brings to it, right? An independent study in 2014 showed the local annual economic impacts to the town of Lansing of $4.6 million, to Tompkins County at $173 million, to the state of New York at $220 million per year, right? That's coupled with $150,000 of annual local giving and charitable contributions, and 4,500 hours of volunteer time from our 200 employees, many of which who are local volunteer firefighters. Okay? This project, again, as you heard many times, is really about trying to provide our employees safe, fresher air and a much quicker way to get out of the mine. Those that have been underground experience that firsthand. For those that haven't, imagine driving to Syracuse from here and experience a health issue. And your closest help is to drive back to where you came from. okay? That's a pretty daunting thing for almost anyone to do. So, as I understand it, the comprehensive plan and why we're in front of you tonight, the comprehensive plan allows for industrial use in a rural agricultural zone, but requires a special use permit, which is why we're in front of you today. I believe that Cargill has met or exceeded all these requirements, and I ask again for your support for this very important project that allows us to continue to be your partner. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone else want to speak?
I had one question.
Sure, go ahead.
Where are the piles of salt going to be?
Where they are today.
No salt leaves the surface, it all goes underground.
Say that again?
It's all underground,
Okay.
so the shaft actually captains from the bottom up.
Are you talking the salt piles that we,
Oh, the salt, okay.
they are staying where they are today?
They stay where they are today, sorry about that. The large stockpiles of salt that
The
we mine
stockpiles of salt.
stays at the current facility.
Okay, thank you. That's what I thought. I
Yes.
just wanted
Yeah,
to-
there's no, yeah.
Sorry, I had a lawn full of them over there.
Thank you.
And all the manufacturing and processing occurs at
Yes.
your headquarters?
It stays there.
One of the concerns that has been mentioned is that will this eventually be a distribution center? And my understanding is, I'm not putting words in your mouth, only what I've heard through the different presentations, is that number one, you don't have the acreage. Number two, you don't have access to the railroad, because you use that a lot. Was it 25% of your monthly get shipped there from rail?
Correct.
So that would not be economically feasible, nor would it be practical.
Right.
So this simply is to get your workers down where they can work, and the product that you manufacture, produce, or extract, that gets sent back to the normal place, correct?
That's right.
I also find it astounding that, imagine driving to Syracuse and breathing air that's from here too. It's not just the emergencies.
Are there any other questions, comments? If not, we have entertained a motion to.
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Okay, moving on to our next public hearing. Lots of public hearings tonight. This one is the proposed final draft comprehensive plan. Someone would like to entertain a motion to open this?
I will.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
We're going to use the same process. I'll read off the names here, and if anybody else wants to make a comment afterwards, the only thing I ask of them is just to give me their name. So the first one on our list is Ruth Hopkins.
Hello.
Hello.
I'm here to thank the board for its decision to delay the plan approval in order to provide time for citizen discussion of the comp plan. I'm well aware that the town board, the citizen committees, and the planning board have put many hours and earnest effort together to draft this plan. I too put in many hours between 2012 and 2015. However, I share the concern that the comp plan hearings and the information meetings did not provide opportunities for questions and discussion. I tried to learn the reasons for the planning board's changes made to the Citizen Update Committee's draft by looking at the minutes. However, there were no minutes about these discussions, and changes during those 9 months, no explanations. Indeed, it's unfortunate that the town did not address I'm pleased that the citizen discussion sessions will now occur. Sessions that will help residents gain understanding of the plan and its implications for our community's future. As you know, I submitted my questions about the draft comp plan in writing as requested. I did not get a response. Indeed, it's unfortunate that the town did not address my letter, since one of my questions, number 6 to be precise, was what plan goals are being addressed by designating the village solar apartment complex as the development model for the largest part of South Lansing. Because, as it turns out, the county's 239 response stated that the impact of such a plan would have broad impact and therefore required further review. Now I hear this was a mistake, but had the citizen comments such as mine been addressed, such mistakes might not have occurred. Further, although the planning board tried to address the 67 pages of written comments about the plan, they were unable to do so directly, such that many other citizens, such as myself, also felt their questions were not answered. There's a broad interest in knowing more, and in knowing how this draft plan is different from the current 2005 plan. Thank you again for allowing citizen discussion of the plan, and I'm confident this can happen in a timely manner. Happy holidays, everyone.
Okay. Next one is Melanie Malone.
Hi, thank you for allowing me to speak. My concerns with the comprehensive, I guess I should say where I'm from, I'm not sure. I'm from Myers Heights Road.
Wherever you're from,
Okay.
we don't need your address.
Oh, okay.
It's okay.
My concerns with the comprehensive plan pertain mostly to public health, and I do have a lot of them, but with the constraints of the 3 minutes, I'll just touch on a few. First, the Lansing school system. We know it's an award-winning, only one of 19 schools in New York State to receive the Blue Ribbon designation. So I am wondering how the caliber of the diverse academics and robust extracurricular activities will continue with an influx of students. Has the comprehensive plan given thought to the potential impacts of a rapidly expanding student population? Is there a plan to address this? And if there is, where will that funding come from? I'm also here to say that I would like to ask that the commercial mixed-use designation for Route 34B, past Rogues Harbor, I oppose that. That roadway is a part of the Cayuga Lake Scenic Byway, and the byway is known by locals and visitors alike for the beautiful landscape, the open spaces, the view of the farmlands and the vineyards that are in this area. So people who visit here see this, and it's an impressive roadway, and it leaves an impact on people that Lansing is a great place. The reason that many people come to Lansing is to get away from the exact type of development proposed for this area. In addition, the natural environment there provides a buffer from road noise for nearby residents. Removing this will create more noise, more nighttime light. This space is also habitat to wildlife, and this wildlife attracts people to our area. Building up this land close to the lake will affect the lake experience and forever alter the atmosphere surrounding our lakeshore. The car repair shop on the corner of Route 34B and Myers Road could still remain as a commercial use. This repair shop was built in 1960, as far as I know, so I believe that would qualify it as a pre-existing non-conforming use. There is an answer to allowing the owner of the repair shop reap the benefits of his investments, but changing miles of zoning along Route 34B is not the answer. I strongly object also to the commercial mixed use added to Myers Park. Please keep all of the land use in Myers Park as recreational. That's the only way to go. The quaintness of the park and its appeal is largely due to the absence of that type of activity. Viewing land development as the only way to economic growth is dangerous to our community. Economic growth based on degrading Lansing's resources is a dead end. Lansing has an abundance of natural capital. This includes many things in our environment. We have capital in our community, also with the people that are here, and many other resources. This capital, including the natural capital, can be used as a means to economic growth. New York State has defined the comprehensive plan as the governing body's process of careful consideration and forethought, resulting in zoning that is calculated to serve the community's greatest welfare. So as the board considers this comprehensive plan, I would ask that the focus not be, where does Lansing put development? But rather, how can Lansing use its many existing forms of capital to maintain and improve the quality of life for all residents? Thank you.
Does anyone else want to make a comment for into the comprehensive plan? Okay. Tom Butler?
Good evening. My name is Tom Butler. I have spoken a number of times regarding the comp plan, and at risk of sounding like a broken record, I'll repeat some of my concerns. Why does the revision of the comp plan not include changing the designation of Bell Station land from lakeshore low density to recreation, future park, or public land on the future land use map? That was the designation given to the property on the 2016 future land use map that was part of the 2016 comp plan update committee's draft that was handed to the planning board. The planning board's latest revision has reworded and endorsed the concept of the Bell Station land being public, and I wholeheartedly commend them on that. So please have the future land use map reflect what is in the text. There is even more reason to give it a future parkland classification, keeping in mind that the county has now made the area a unique natural area. Please change the future land use map to reflect what is written in the comp plan. In the county's assessment of the comp plan, the county recommends, quote, modified recommendation I-1A to indicate that the town will work with NYSEG to enhance, not necessarily expand, the electrical and natural gas distribution systems to increase capacities while encouraging the transition to alternative forms of energy, unquote. It is my understanding that this section now reads, quote, to enhance and expand the electrical and natural gas distribution systems, unquote. The expand natural gas runs counter to the recommendation of the county comp plan goal to reduce natural gas by at least 50% from 2008 levels. Why not change the wording to enhance natural gas distribution and enhance and expand electrical use? This would be more in keeping with the county recommendation. The county also stated that their comments, quote, in the list of tourism programs identified under goal T3, we suggest you also include the Cayuga Lake Scenic Byway, unquote. That would include Route 34 from Lansing to Stewart Park. Does the comp plan and the future land use map consider what are compatible land uses for this section of the scenic byway? Is commercial mixed use appropriate for a large section of this road? Are there any sections on Route 34 or Trip Hammer Road where a possible scenic overlook could be added? Such amenities would add to the attractiveness of the town. The county did not see some of the items that the planning board removed from the August 2016 comp plan draft, so there are no comments from the county about such items. In the parks and, for example, in the parks and paths section, as the removal of the recommendation PP1E, designate a Conservation Advisory Council to prepare an inventory of open spaces to be followed by a conservation board. This still seems to me a good idea, but has been taken out of the plan. Thank you and happy holidays.
Thanks, Tom. Anyone else? Dean?
Hi there, my name is Dean Shea. I'm on the planning board currently, and heard some comments about the planning board and how they addressed specific concerns and questions from the community. The planning board met for a long period of time, and discussed in detail the proposed comprehensive plan. And there was not a lot of community input during that period. Part of this process is to have a comprehensive plan that's very broad and very general, and allows us to do a lot of different things. And then I think where the rubber really meets the road is when we get into actually writing the new zoning that comes out of that, or flows out of that comprehensive comprehensive plan. I think that our current draft plan that we've recommended to the town board really gives us a lot of leeway to go in whichever direction we want to go when it comes to writing that zoning. And I really am pleased with what seems like a late arrival with the community, but now they seem to be fully engaged, and I would just encourage people to really get engaged with the process after the comp plan is adopted, because the comp plan itself doesn't seem to be as critical as what we actually put into law in our new zoning laws. The planning board did, at least internally, address all the questions that was given to it in writing. Some of those questions to us seem to be things that were kind of self-answered if you really looked at the comprehensive plan. There were questions on where is this goal supported, or this item supported in the plan. We read through and found, well, it's supported in many places. So some of those questions were not answered in writing, others were. Ultimately, what we got back from the county, in their review, we only had 2 items that they actually recommended to the board. And the board looked at both of those items and recommended them to the town board with some very slight changes that we recommended that those be adopted. I will say that the county board in their document had very good things to say about the comp plan. They were very positive comments on the document that we have provided to the town board, and I encourage the town board to adopt this draft with those changes. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
My name is Carolyn Rasmussen, and I'll just be really brief. It seems like there's been a lot of changes to the comprehensive plan, and I'm really not well aware of them myself, and I think a lot of people that don't attend meetings like this on a regular basis are not. I'm just wondering to what degree have these changes to the comprehensive plan been publicized, maybe in something like the Lansing Star or even at the Journal or on your website. If I could just ask the question, is the comprehensive plan in its entirety as proposed on the Lansing website? It is.
Yes.
So we can see it. Excuse me?
All versions.
Okay. So just to make an effort to engage the community, I think would be well worth everybody's while. Thank you.
Thank you.
Michael Blair. I want to thank each of you for serving and each person who has been on the Comprehensive Planning Committee initially and the Planning Board for every bit of their work at various stages. I want to speak more generally to public participation. I would say, as a very overall statement, that meaningful public input is hard work. It takes a lot of planning. I was on the legislature for Tompkins County for 12 years. Every single year we had a different mechanism for the public input process, for the budget hearing. We didn't just schedule a budget hearing and say, come on, come all, after X number of meetings. We hope you follow the process, give us your feedback. The rate's going to be this, the changes are going to be that. We actually devised each and every year a mechanism to have people come. Some years it was 2 hours of presentation and a charrette, and to have them actually sit in the chair, so to speak, of those who might have to make a decision and make pro and con type decisions. Sometimes we had people in small groups on certain topics, wrestle with different issues and make recommendations. Sometimes we had people from the public go through a subcommittee process and actually come on a Saturday and get quite a briefing of the entire budget, not just the end process, to give us input. So I'm not saying that we have not had public input here in this particular comprehensive planning process, but I'm just trying to characterize going forward that it takes a lot of work, a lot of extra planning, and just scheduling one public hearing and asking people to come forward is not going to be enough. respectfully follow up Steve Shea's comments about the public participation process. Yes, there were 13 meetings for the planning board, but again, those meetings were not necessarily well publicized. People did not understand their access. I think the town board and any committees of the town board have to do due diligence to reach out more proactively. Even when the comprehensive planning committee in August of 16 did indeed have a public comment period, the next meeting, the public comments were not debated or considered or discussed at the comprehensive planning committee before it was passed on. So I think there's a reason why the public is showing up a little bit more now, because they were surprised by the inadequacy of the process going forward. In general, I would say, if it's possible, going forward in 2018 and beyond, the town board actually consider having kind of a public participation subcommittee to help different boards, whether it's Ag Committee, whether it's this kind of a committee we're on now, whether it's Parks and Rec, to do more outreach, to educate the public, to engage the public, have some kind of a public participation process advisory board. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Carrie, I also submitted comments to the planning board about the comprehensive plan. I did not get a response, but I trust that they were forwarded to each of you, and if not, I can send them individually. In essence, what I asked for was a comp plan that is prescriptive rather than descriptive. Prescriptive in that it thinks about the best use, aesthetics, beauty of our community, and economics. In contrast to that, there are some portions of the comp plan that are descriptive. For example, the section for the Cargill Shaft Board area was proposed to be zoned as industrial in anticipation of the special use permit. If we are to have a Lansing community that is considering all needs, I think it should put out there a vision for what we all truly want. And secondly, I think the comp plan should adequately protect the resources. Just to echo what John Butler was saying, we really need to think about Bell Station and how precious a resource that is, and also the Lansing trails and how people use Lansing for recreation. I really do think that it's the job of the comp plan to protect all of that. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Hi. So I'm here as Mike Sigler, 218 Crewville Road, not as a county legislator. So I just, I wanted to just say, I wanted to thank you all for bringing this comp plan forward. I mean, we obviously took a lot of time with our own comp plan at the county. It took a lot of time to get to, a lot of different input from a lot of different people. And frankly, there's a lot in there that I don't particularly care for. And there's a lot of things in there that other people don't particularly care for. But it is a guide. It is not a set in stone kind of thing. I will say that there are parts of that comp plan that we actually had to explain to people because they didn't really understand kind of what was going on. And it's kind of like someone had mentioned, you know, there was some kind of zoning down at Myers Park that was changed. And it's my understanding that that may be because maybe the town wants to put a marina in. You know, I think sometimes people have this idea that we're going to put a big commercial down there. When no, we're actually going to do something, or not we, somebody may do something that actually fits the use of that park. I know Stewart Park is looking at the same kind of ideas. And then, you know, you're talking about like development of 34B. I'm looking at that road, I drive that every day. And I'm thinking, where would you develop here? I mean, the school owns most of it. And then you've got the church that owns the other part, maybe across from the church. And then the stuff that's commercial is already commercial. And frankly, some of it looks bad. I mean, I'm hoping somebody comes and buys it. You know. I mean, a couple of those buildings look like they're going gonna fall down, and hopefully they will, and we'll build something new and nice, and that would be great. But I do want to thank you. For those that say maybe there hasn't been enough public input into this, I mean, I would remind them, we've had 3 elections since then. There have been people that have come and gone on the planning board. We're looking at this planning board now that finally got this passed, but there were people before that put into this. It's a 7-year endeavor. We have a new supervisor. We have new town board members. I mean, there are a lot of people have put a lot into this. I'm not saying vote for it tonight. I'm not, like I said, it's a guide. And I think some other things should be explained too. I mean, I've worked on that Bell property. I mean, I've worked with the Finger Lakes Land Trust to see, if that was going to be bought, the Finger Lakes Land Trust would like the DEC to buy it. And, some people talk about it being a park. I don't want it to be a state park, because then you don't get any tax money from the town. It'd be much better as a state forest. And then the guys that are farming it can keep farming. If it's a state park, there's a lot of limitations on there, and you lose a lot of tax money. But if it's a state forest, it would act like the Danby Forest or the Newfield Forest. There were tax ramifications. And I'm kind of guessing that's why it's being zoned the way it's zoned. If you leave it at that kind of zoning, there's probably tax implications. I'm not sure of that, but I know that a lot of people have looked at that particular issue. So, I don't know, maybe just with the questions that were asked, there's probably pretty easy explanations. And if we laid those out, then maybe you'd have an easier time moving forward. So, thank you very much for your time. Thank you, too. It really is a lot of work. I mean, believe me, when we put out our comp plan, pages, tens of pages, lots of departments. So, thank you very much.
Anyone else? If not, I'd entertain a motion to close the public hearing. So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
So let's move on to number 8, which is the public hearing for the proposed drainage district number 10 for Noble Lane subdivision. That brings back our members.
I'll move that.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye. Would you like to give some, sorry. Guy, would like to give some background on that a little bit on the drainage district?
Well, Nova Lane is a residential subdivision surrounded by residential subdivisions, and part of its subdivision approval process required that any permanent stormwater facilities that are to be maintained on a community-wide, or in this case subdivision-wide basis, would be managed by a drainage district. Stormwater requirements mandate that either by agreement, such as with single private developers, or for public utility infrastructures, you can use drainage districts. You have to have a mechanism in place to ensure the long-term mandated reporting, upkeep and maintenance, and if required, improvement of stormwater facilities. So there are individualized lot-based stormwater practices which would not be part of the district, but easements to access and inspect them and make sure that they're being maintained properly would be. And the ponds and conveyances and things that are part of the permanent stormwater facilities would be conveyed to a drainage district managed by the town as the board of that drainage district and chargeable only to the lots benefited within that individual district. So there's really no public expense, but you're creating a taxing authority to maintain that drainage district, and that's what the public interest order is about, and that's what the public hearing is about.
Having said that, the public hearing is open. Would anyone want to comment on drainage district number 10? Oh, why not? Since there's no comment, I'd like to entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll move that.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
On item number 9, Park and Recreation Report. Steve Cole has submitted it in our packet. Are there any comments you want to make, Steve?
Just two quick things. Several years ago, corporate Dick's Sporting Goods, the corporation, reached out to us. They really liked it's like a community partnership program, and I think they looked around the area and they really liked what we had to offer. And so this is like year maybe 7 or 8, and I just went into another agreement with them for this upcoming spring. There's close to $2,000 worth of equipment that they're going to donate to us. The other thing is, a couple of months ago, I reported to you about the first ever chess club at the elementary school, which is really kind of a neat thing. I mean, for us, we're always looking for the non-athletic, diversified, different types of programs. And I went down today, and this was their last day. This was their tournament. They finished up today with sort of a wrap-up of a 2-week tournament. The kids had a great time. Amazing how far they came since the first day that we started this thing. So those are the 2 things. Everything else is on the paper.
Great. Thank you.
I got a question. What is hot stove baseball?
You're not a Yankee fan? Or baseball? No, hot stove is very traditional terminology for professional baseball or any baseball. When you get to this time of the year where all the winter meetings are taking place. So hot stove, cold weather, discussions, big meetings last week in Florida. That's why they call it hot stove. And so years ago, we were one of the first programs to offer winter baseball for kids over at the CRC inside on the turf. And since then, there's been a lot of other spin-off, but there's people in this room that have coached for us, a lot of guys over there, one sitting next to me that, you know, were sort of involved right from the jump on some of this stuff. That's hot stove baseball.
Thank you.
If there's nothing else, we'll move on to the Highway Superintendent report. Cricket is not here anymore. Oh, there he is. How could I miss you?
Short and sweet. Basically, a couple resolutions later on. I'm here for any questions you guys have, but snow and ice season, so carry on.
Good. Thank you. Moving on to number 11, Planning Consultant Report. Michael?
All right, I'll be brief as well. What I gave each of you individual members is the annual summary of the activities that the planning board's had, the major projects involved. But just for the summation, tonight we talked about the Cargill project. In August, DEC issued their negative deck. We met with Cargill shortly after that. The planning board had a sketch plan review on September 11th, started the process of looking at community input and such. The county came back with a finding of no significant impact on the 239 review. That letter was dated September 29th. The planning board then did a site plan review, had a public hearing on October 16th. Again, had a lot of comments. And again, Carrie Flint-Valera had a lot of issues that were addressed. Dave Herrick with TG Miller, I think Dave is still here, actually went on the site, met with different individuals and tried to make some changes. I want to thank the engineers involved because they made all of the significant changes that were discussed at that time. So they're very helpful in terms of working through the process. So the site plan review was approved by the planning board and sent to the town board at their November 13th meeting. And tonight, hopefully you'll have your public hearing and adopt it. But we just want to thank Cargill for their professionalism in going through the process. Also, the state of New York has issued them, I think, $2 million grant towards the shaft itself because of the economic impact of it. So I think it's certainly something that would be well considered. So
thank you. Any questions for Michael? If not, we'll move on. Dave, you're here. I want to take advantage of this. Any comments on the engineer's report?
Well, I didn't plan on being here, so I won't add anything more than what I summarized in my monthly report. Certainly will answer any questions.
Okay, thank you. I didn't see Connie tonight. The Ag committees are meeting now since things are, I don't know if the word Andre is slowing down. I think just that farmers do different things when it's this time of weather. So, but we have a more opportunity to meet. They had tremendous input on the comp plan. To get them all in the same room, being as diverse as they are, and talking about things, I think was a major accomplishment. And to Connie's credit, they all wanted her as the chair. And it was to a person. That's what they wanted. So I think she's one of the reasons why we have been moving along with the ag plan. The comprehensive plan update, I think we can probably take that off the agenda from now on. I think we, at least from Connie's standpoint, if we want to have comments on this as we progress, I have no problem keeping that on. I will share comments as we go. One of the things that I will share with you right now is that I'm in no rush for this thing. Chances are, if you're lucky, you'll probably go through one more of these comp plans and it'll blow up. But this is a teachable moment, and I believe in teachable moments. One of the things I've reached out to Chris Williams is that we're going to videotape some of our meetings and put them on the website, our town website, so you can watch them. The other thing I've reached out to Mike Long to see if we can do a taping of what zoning is. What are the different B1, R1, R2, B whatever, to learn how these things go. The other thing I've talked to Tommy Ellis, the chair of our planning board, and when we do have these informational meetings, there'll be at least 2 planning board members there also to discuss this. This is not a debate, this is not a beatdown, this is not the WWF, this is informational where everybody's comfortable. And I'm open-minded to this because I've been here 55 years, hopefully God will keep me around a few more years, but you know what, it's not about me, it's about where we find consensus here, and as this goes forward. And I said before, if nothing changes, that's an action. So whatever the input is, if we have to methodically do this for the next few months, it's okay. The main thing tonight is to get our requirement done for what the planning board has done, which is to send this to us. And once we do it in 90 days, we can discuss. And if we have to have another public hearing, we will. We'll have more informational hearings, we will. And we'll continue this dialogue, and we will continue to together grow as a town. Having said that, let's move on to privilege of the floor. For the few of you who haven't talked yet, okay, who wants to come on? Michael?
Hi, I'm Michael Stan. I'm president of TCAD, or Tompkins County Area Development, which is the county's economic development corporation. We're not part of county government, although we work closely with them. And I wanted to talk a little bit about economic development in the context of the Cargill project. Most people think economic development takes place when you bring in a big business from someplace else, plops down in your community, and creates hundreds or thousands of jobs. That rarely happens, and certainly is even rarer to happen in upstate New York, which is a very high-cost place to do business. Most economic development focuses on keeping what you have, that's called business retention, helping those existing businesses expand if they have expansion potential. And in Tompkins County, another part is helping existing entrepreneurs start new businesses. And we have a lot of entrepreneurs in our community. So TCAD and some of our other organizations we work with spend almost all of our time working with existing businesses and keeping them here. And again, if they have expansion potential, help them with that. If they have issues maintaining their jobs, helping them with those issues. So in the context of Cargill, we're very supportive of that project from an economic development perspective because we know how much it would cost, either in terms of incentives or other expenses to the community, to replace those 200 really great jobs. I've been in the mine, and when I got done screaming at the bottom of the mine because it was scary and dark, I really did notice how dedicated the employees that were down there were, and how conscious they were about safety. So again, from the county's Economic Development Corporation's perspective, keeping jobs that we already have is the easiest thing to do from an economic development perspective. Replacing 200 jobs would be a very, very heavy lift for Tompkins County. Thank you.
Michael, I'm going to take advantage of this moment, and I say this with a heavy heart. Dryden, they're losing a high-speed checkway. And that was, for whatever the reason, it is what it is. You see the economic impact of that. I've been told, through people that I try to do research with, that if you lose one job, it's not just one job. There's usually an exponential. It could be for one job, there's 3 more jobs get affected or lost. Is that a fair gauge as far as that goes? I know I'm asking 2 or 3 questions here.
It certainly is, particularly in manufacturing or natural resource extraction. They had tremendous multiplier effects, and I think that was demonstrated by the economic impact study on the impact of Cargill in your town, our county, and in New York State. And high-speed checkweighers moving to Florida because they have a sister plant down there that's building a new facility, and it makes a good business sense for them to be there, unfortunately. But with some of our other activities, we have a lot of businesses that are looking for people that know how to work in a modern, high-tech, advanced manufacturing floor. So hopefully we'll be able to absorb the losses from high-speed. But again, this is a tough business, particularly in New York State. Very, very high-cost state to do business. So again, we've got to focus all of our efforts on keeping what we have and helping them grow if they have an opportunity to grow.
Sure, thank you.
Thank you.
I also have, number 2 is Dean Shea. Do you want to comment?
Sure. Hi there again. Just as a property owner, as we go through this process of the comp plan and especially zoning changes and zoning laws, I think it's very important that we do just what Michael Kaplinka-Lair mentioned, and that is really think about how we engage with the public here in the town of Lansing. I think that the state sets a very low bar. Back when I was a kid, everybody got the Ithaca Journal. People went to Chris and Green's, and you kind of knew what was going on. Well, today, that Chris and Green's is gone, and I think very few people get the Ithaca Journal anymore. So we really need to think about how, at no cost or low cost, we can engage with people by email notifications. And I think that when it comes to actual laws that impact individual property owners, they need to have a positive notification from the town. Not a, we put it in the paper and it's kind of up to you to figure it out. But if it affects you as a property owner, it's going to change the way that you can use your property and your personal liberty. I think it's very, very important that people have very positive, they get that postcard in the mail, they get some kind of positive notification that we are going to change what you can do with your personal property to pay taxes. Thank you.
Thank you. Herb Sheldon.
Thanks for the music.
Intro.
I'm Herb Sheldon. I'm the chair of the Lansing ZBA, and I came here to ask you formally, I know you have the applications, to appoint Chris Williams to a full 5-year term on our board. This is, and to appoint Pete Larson III as the new alternate. And this is the result of unanimous consensus from the Zoning Board of Appeals. Secondly, I'd like to thank Robert Cree for being the liaison to the ZBA for the last 2 years. He hasn't had much to do, but he has been very useful to have him there and answer questions. And I know that his feedback from his meetings there to the board have been very useful. So thank you for your service.
Yes, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Next one is Susan Hinderleiter. Sorry.
Hi, I'm Suzanne Hinderleiter. We live on Salmon Creek Road, in case anybody needs to know that. I have been sorely disappointed at least twice by not being allowed to speak in a public meeting. And I'm not alone. Tonight I am somewhat encouraged by what I'm hearing will be coming. But I do have mainly one comment, and in fact, one word to keep in mind. Communication, that's the word. Improved communication between the town board and community members will go a long way to improve the mood of the community, and especially if you expect and deserve cooperation on the many items on the agendas that lie ahead. I'm looking forward to learning a lot more about the comprehensive plan. I've read through parts of it. I find it a little difficult to read, and I think the proposed meetings where parts of it are explained or perhaps on the website, parts have like a little workshop about parts of it in some of the terminology that's used in it for those of us who are just beginning to learn about it. I look forward to learning more about it and by listening to explanations that you all have or the planning board has and so forth. Let's open up the dialogue and get more people involved and giving feedback. And thank you all for all your work. I know the town board puts in a lot of hours. The planning board has put in many hours. And the comprehensive plan needs, I think, some more work, and we'll see it through to the end. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you. Ruth Hopkins?
Oh, I already spoke, thank you.
And Tom Butler? We're okay? Good. Okay. Does anybody else want to make a comment on the go to the floor? Okay. Now let's move on. This will be number 16, which is the resolution conditionally approving Cargill Incorporated Mineshaft number 4 site plan improvements and special use permit.
I'll gladly make that motion.
I'll second it.
Any comments?
Yes. Just going to add the whereas incorporating the planning board record as part of this resolution. It'll be a minor amendment.
Yes.
So as amended, would you still make that motion?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Any other discussion?
I guess I want to thank everybody. I had no idea how many years you worked on this plan. And also the heartfelt talk by all the employees. It's just amazing to hear employees speak so wonderfully about their employer, even though it's a huge corporation. It's not something little. Cargill is all over the world. And so to know that they really care about these 200 employees who work in our town is really, really heartening. And I want to thank them for coming. And I also want to thank Cargill for their involvement in the town and for all the work and foresight you do for this plan.
Anyone else have any more comment?
Yes, I'd like to second those thoughts, and I've worked with volunteers down at Salt Point, and wonderful, enthusiastic, hardworking, and thank you to Cargill for supporting that, to allow their employees to do that.
Anyone else?
I would just, I want to say thank you to Sean and his crew for the personal invite. Some of us took that tour, and I'm more of a visual person, so you could tell me 10 times, but if I experience it once, it really sinks in. And the diligence that you all go through regarding safety, really hit home with me when I experienced it. And the OMG moment when I got down there and realized how long it takes to get from your current point of entry to your proposed point of entry. really hit home. And the airflow issues that are there, it just, like I said, I can't thank you enough. It helped me better understand the needs that you've been having to deal with, so. Thank you.
Is it my turn? You've also been down there.
Yes, I have. The amazing thing about that is there is absolutely no light, period. Nothing. But that was the one thing I took from it, other than the air going down the shaft. Just going by. But, no, great job. It was a great presentation, and thank you for all you do in Lansing.
I had a long relationship with the playground before I was on the board, and Cargill helped a lot of volunteers to that. It was a great community project. And Katrina and Andrea and I have a special bond with you because we were all at the Associated Towns meeting when you had the elevator concern. I got a phone call at 1 o'clock in the morning from Dennis Griffin looking for a place for the families to go because they can't get to the fire hall because all the news people are there because they are concerned about the news. And I think Doug called me at 3 or 5, I can't remember which one. Probably 3, because Sigurd called me later. He doesn't have a 3, neither do I, so he must have been a 5. And someone called me again at 7. And we're sitting there in the Associated Towns meeting, and he said, should we go home? And I said to him, no, they're okay. They have it under control. I think I talked to the Associated Press that day. I talked to your Minnesota home base that day and see how things were. And the professionalism as you just methodically go through this, everybody's fine. Everybody's fine. And I remember you sharing that with me, so just having to enhance the professionalism. This is not an easy job. This is dangerous business. And you have to know what you're doing. And one thing we keep talking about with this mine is that you always talk about the miners, your workers. That's always been through as the primary subject is our employees. So having said that,
I want to add one more thing.
Sure.
Sean and I had a discussion about how fantastic the tour was and how really everybody in the town should experience that but can't because work has to happen. So I do encourage you to go forward to really do an updated video experience of that tour, and it would be great to post it on the town website, your website.
Absolutely.
You know, the kids that go to school, it would be just fascinating for them. That would help people to understand the huge experience of what you're actually doing.
We got quotes that we're working with the people this week.
Great.
We proved it today.
So thank you. No, thank you for the input. It is, at least the virtual tour will be better than word of mouth, right? And others that are out there. So that's a very valid point.
I look forward to the private one. I could not join this group last time we had an emergency at work, but I look forward to the I'll try not to hyperventilate, okay?
I believe
Good luck with that.
also.
Yeah.
So let me know.
Yeah. Having said that, are we all set to proceed with the vote, Mrs. Munson?
Andrew Benson?
Yes.
Katrina Binkowitz?
Yes.
Robert Creed?
Yes.
Doug Day?
Yes.
Ed Levine?
Yes. Okay, so moved.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Move on to we got more. Next one is number 17, the resolution approving and authorizing execution of Cargill's Incorporated Stormwater Operation Management and Report Agreement.
I'll also move that.
Second.
Is there any discussion with that? If not, Mrs. Munson?
Andrew Benson?
Yes.
Katrina Binkowitz?
Yes.
Robert Creed?
Yes.
Doug Day?
Yes.
Ed Levine?
Yes. Number 18, the resolution approving public interest order and conditionally approving formation of drainage district number 10 for Noble Lane subdivision. Someone like to make a motion?
I will.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? Mrs. Munson?
Andrew Benson?
Yes.
Katrina Binkowitz?
Yes.
Robert Creed?
Yes.
Doug Day?
Yes.
Ed Levine?
Yes. Number 19, the resolution appointing receiver of taxes for 2018-2019. So moved.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? Mrs. Munson?
Andrew Benson.
Yes.
Katrina Bakerwood.
Yes.
Robert Creed.
Yes.
Doug Dave.
Yes.
Ed Levine.
Yes. Number 20, the resolution reappointing Larry Sharpstein as a planning board member, reappointing Dean Shea as an alternate planning board member, and appointing Thomas Butler as a second alternate planning board member.
I'll move that.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Mrs. Munson?
Andrew Benson.
Yes.
Katrina Bakerwood.
Yes.
Robert Creed.
Yes.
Doug Dave.
Yes.
Ed Levine.
Yes. Item 21, resolution appointing Chris Williams as a ZBA member and Pete Larson III as an alternate ZBA member.
I'll move that.
Second. Any discussion?
Robert, were you the second on that?
Yes.
Yeah. Andrew Benson.
Yes.
Katrina Bakerwood.
Yes.
Robert Creed.
Yes.
Doug Dave.
Yes.
Ed Levine.
Yes. Number 22, resolution authorizing the map plan report for consolidated water district number 5.
I'll move that.
Audrey moves it, and Doug second. Any comment? I'd like to make one brief one. And I don't know if you need to comment on this or not, Dave, but this water district will go from, is it Armstrong Road down Fruville? Is that where it's going and connecting to this existing last little bit?
It doesn't go all the way through Hammer, but it stops opposite where the old highway marker was.
On Fruville, right, gotcha. That, by the way, good news is that was unanimous. So that was good. All those people that signed that petition was unanimous, so, and we'll just leave it at that. I will comment later about consolidated water district number 3 in my supervisor's report. But having said that, if there's no other comment, Mr. Munson?
Andrew Benson.
Yes.
Katrina Bakerwood.
Yes.
Robert Creed.
Yes.
Doug Dave.
Yes.
Ed Levine.
Yes. Number 23 is the resolution declaring parks and recreation mowers as excess property and authorizing sale thereof.
So moved.
I'll second that.
Any discussion?
Andrew Benson.
Yes.
Katrina Bakerwood.
Yes.
Robert Creed.
Yes.
Doug Dave.
Yes.
Ed Levine.
Yes. Number 24, the resolution approving and authorizing execution of NICEAG land lease for utility communications tower. Guy, you want to comment on that first before we move forward on that?
Yeah, just so that the board understands. You had last seen a draft of this thing, and they had agreed to pay rents and then a renewal fee every 5 years when it renewed. And I issued a formal reply to NICEAG outlining red lines, basically ideas, expressions, clauses that I wanted changed. We didn't get an answer in November, but we did in the past few days. I've had several discussions with NICEAG's counsel. In a nutshell, I gave them 8 changes. They approved 6 and made 4 more. I approved 4 of those 6 and kicked 2 back. One is they didn't want to, when you decommission a structure like a tower, there is usually a very, very, very large subterranean concrete base. And they said they didn't want to decommission and remove anything below the 3-foot level below the ground, which may be fine for a farm field, but not necessarily great for a highway farm campus where we might need to put a foundation in. And so I pushed back on that. They agreed on that. So we're in complete agreement that remediation will be full remediation. They've agreed to our insurance clause. There was an open question as to whether NICEAG would approve an expanded insurance and indemnity clause. They made one minor change to the indemnity clause, which was the equivalent of, and I'm not being facetious, but whether you call it green or a mixture of blue and yellow, I'm really not concerned about. So they really, I didn't have a chance because the final answer on the insurance thing came in at 3:28, and I was actually here at a meeting. So I didn't get a chance to plug that clause into the form. But with the final agreement in place, the numbers haven't changed. We actually have a better indemnity clause and instead of a 3-sentence insurance clause, we now have a 2-page insurance clause. So the town is in substantially better shape than it was. It wasn't a horrible lease, but in my opinion, leases need to be very specific as to what their benefits and obligations are. sloppy leases made for sloppy tenants. So we're in complete agreement. I think we can move forward. It has the usual language saying subject to final approval by council. So I'm not going to put anything in front of anyone that isn't consistent with what I've required, and if there's no agreement, then there's no signature. But it's up to you whether or not you want to go forward with an oral report, or whether you want to see that clause that I had at the end plugged into paragraph 9. It's up to you. I would recommend you go forward, but it's your call.
I would agree with that.
Yeah, I mean, the option is otherwise this tower is going to go up basically in the town center area as opposed to on the town highway part, which is really not a good spot. It's the, people mentioned, it's part of the byway. It's where we're hoping to get some housing, some mixed use. And if that tower ever went down in that location, it would take out the substation. So regardless of what your opinion is on the beauty or lack of beauty of towers, losing the substation would arguably be a bad thing.
Are you comfortable? So as amended then? So, more or less?
Yeah, as it will be amended, consistent with what I gave you. I can share the emails with you, but they're really legalistic and boring. It's up to you.
I'd rather not.
Having said that, would someone like to make a motion?
So moved.
I'll second.
Any more discussion? If not, Ms. Munson?
Andrew Benson.
Yes.
Katrina Binkowitz.
Yes.
Robert Creed.
Yes.
Doug Day.
Yes.
Ed Levine.
Yes. 25, resolution confirming expiration and terminating stale outside user agreements for the consolidated water district and its extensions. Guy or Dave, do you want to comment on any of this? Or Doug?
I think we put this in place as a sunset, as I remember.
Yeah, it was last November we approved an updated process for the consolidated water district because people were getting approvals and then unable or not desiring to get their easements. And of course, the water district changes, the owners change, and these things get lost and they come back out of the blue. I want this in. So we put a sunset on it, and we gave a year for people with existing permits to try to move forward, or existing approvals to move forward and get a permit, or to come back and go through the new process and get the updated agreement. And those that didn't, just as record cleaning, they're all being canceled. It doesn't affect their right to come back and say, hey, I'm ready now, I got my easement. All of them would, in all likelihood, be approved again, but some of these are 5 years old, 6 years old.
That's the thing we need first anyways.
Yeah, they have to have the ability to put the line in. Yep.
I move it.
I'll second. Any further discussion? Ms. Munson?
Andrew Benson.
Yes.
Katrina Binkowitz.
Yes.
Robert Creed.
Yes.
Doug Day.
Yes.
Ed Levine.
Yes. Which leads us to a nice segue to the next one, which is a resolution authorizing and approving outside user agreement for Nyberg/McCarter Klaus. And I have a feeling Klaus is not going to let his expire.
I'll move this resolution.
I'll second that. Any discussion? Mrs. Munson?
I'm sorry, who made the motion?
Andra made the motion, I seconded it.
Andrew Benson.
Yes.
Katrina Binkowitz.
Yes.
Robert Creed.
Yes.
Doug Day.
Yes.
Ed Levine.
Yes. Number 27, resolution approving highway department purchase of equipment. Cricket, can you give us a little background here?
So it's a replacement of the roadside mower. It's a purchase of $131,000 and change there, resolution. We're replacing a mower that's 12 years old, that is kind of went through its uses. Certainly upgrade will be much better. It's a Predator, better equipped, more ability to roll behind guide rails and things, so a lot more useful. So.
And just so people want to know, this money has already been allocated in the budget. So this is now, we start the process now to move forward.
Yeah.
So there's a time factor involved in here.
Yeah. So I'm just asking to put forward. It's out of the 2018 budget. And we're not obligated, obviously, until we receive it. This just allows me to get the thing ordered at this point and have it ready to go for, hey, when the grass starts growing.
Good. If there's nothing else,
I'll move this resolution.
I will second.
any discussion? If not, Mrs. Munson?
Andrew Benson?
Yes.
Katrina Binkowitz?
Yes.
Robert Reed?
Yes.
Doug Date?
Yes.
Ed Levine?
Yes. Number 28, we have a resolution authorizing and approving T.G. Miller, PC agreement for proposed consolidated water district number 4 on Drake Road. Guy, do you want to comment on this a bit? Only because it's about you. That's why. I'm sure this is the best choice anyone in town could have, right? There you go.
No, it's the same agreement that you've basically seen for years. We did have a little tussle because they did update to 2015 and change some stuff. So rather than wrestle with 85 pages of where are the changes, we agreed to stay with the 2007 version and keep life simple. So same one that you saw for the pump station, same one that you saw for Bone Plane. Yes, and Dave knows the 3 standard changes I have. They're all there. We're all good.
I move this resolution.
I'll second.
Katrina.
Mrs. Munson?
Andrew Benson?
Yes.
Katrina Binkowitz?
Yes.
Robert Reed?
Yes.
Doug Date?
Yes.
Ed Levine?
Yes. Number 19 is a resolution authorizing the map plan report for consolidated water district extension to cover whole of town center lands. We've done this before with through the orchard. We've done it in a variety of different areas where all of a sudden now the whole parcel is being involved. So we're extending the consolidated water district to that whole area. This is in case we had development over there, we had that in place already. That's the reason why.
The agreement.
The agreement. Have I left anything out, David?
Well, this might be an opportunity for other former outside user agreements to be folded into the parent CWD. I was, not that it has to be, but I was anticipating that this exercise would take care of a lot of those, plus some of the more recent ones, where lands are already partially in a district and there's been requests to extend them. In lieu of going into an outside user agreement. So I've been prepared to make that work happen here at some point in the last several years. And if you're going to do it for the town center, I might suggest you do it for all of the other outstanding outside user agreements, plus other additional requests that you've had recently. Namely, Cargill has made a request for the balance of their property.
Sure. I thought we talked about that one for Cargill, unless I'm mistaken.
I thought we did that last time.
Yeah, I think we did that one. Having said that, is this something we could discuss to be for the thorough umbrella for at our January Water and Sewer Advisory Board to maybe have recommendations brought to the January meeting?
Yeah, you can do it. If you just want to do the town lands now, fine, but I think it's probably a good time to just get all of them that are out there brought in one exercise, one map plan report.
Yeah.
And just streamline that process.
I think it gives us time to get the list ready so the board has time, at least they're aware of it now that it's coming, as opposed to dumping it in their laps tonight. That would be, at least in my opinion, appropriate to do it then. So, but that was a good conversation. At least we'll be looking forward to that at our next meeting then.
Sure.
So then we'll move to.
Should we
attempt
move to
move
table
do this
this?
tonight.
We're going to do the one tonight for the town land, at least I would hope so. But you have more properties is what your point is.
Yes, there can be
So-
many more that can be incorporated in one exercise.
And the reason we're doing it for the town land is because we want Cornerstone that has a application cycle that they're in, and they need things to be available. Correct?
Right.
So moved.
Okay, so he's in motion.
Second.
Okay. Robert seconds it. No further discussion.
Andrew Benson?
Yes.
Katrina Binkowitz?
Yes.
Robert Freed.
Yes.
Doug Date.
Yes.
Ed Levine.
Yes. Resolution requesting reduction of speed limit on Oakwood Drive.
I'll move that.
Where is it?
Where is it?
Carbone.
It's the
Okay.
Carbone.
Oh, okay.
I think people are figuring out that it connects Hillcrest and Warren, and they're using it as a shortcut, would be my guess.
I bet it is.
Why?
I bet it is.
I've seen a lot of people do it, including poachers. Not that I want to label anyone. but I will.
So we have a,
Not that I have video, so.
so we have a motion.
Oh, yeah, I have photos
I
and
have
video. I
Andrew.
know.
I don't have a second, or I didn't hear a second.
There wasn't one yet.
I'll second. Any discussion? The comment I have, didn't we have one for Wilson Road also?
We did.
And that would be on our next. was
No,
that-
Wilson Road, we already passed, and I did the paperwork for that, and I've sent it
Okay,
in.
we did.
And we're
Okay.
waiting to hear back, so
All
this
right.
one will be following the
Thank
same
you.
day, now to do the paperwork.
They said they got it understood.
Update.
Yeah, so I had a notification that they did receive the letter, and they.
Right, and they're
are
gonna do the study.
Scheduled to take a look at Wilson Road, so like I
Right.
said, this Oakwood Drive came in yesterday
Yesterday.
afternoon, so.
Thank you, because I've seen this one, I mean, what do you call this thing, guy, pop-ups?
Yeah, this one was, this
I don't
was
have
added
labels
this
for
morning.
things.
This was one of Debbie's favorites.
Okay.
Other than poacher.
So I mean, we had a second, we have a motion and a second.
Yes.
No more discussions.
I deny it.
Mrs. Munson?
Andrew Benson.
Yes.
Katrina Bakerwood.
Yes.
Robert Freed.
Yes.
Doug Date.
Yes.
Ed Levine.
Yes. 31 is to approve the audit and supervisor report. I would like to make a motion to do that.
Second. Actually, I should have said you.
No, that's for the voucher.
I'll second it.
Yep, good. Any discussion?
Yeah, I just want to point out, because you've got a sentence in here, the supervisor's report is reviewed by me. And I've been doing that for 8 weeks. So none of you are privy to why that came about, right? So when I came on board, I think the town had just gone through a review or an audit by the comptroller's office, and their recommendation was that one of the town board members be reviewing the supervisor's report. So what that consists of is I will come in and I will basically re-reconcile that supervisor's report against all of the town's bank accounts and their bank statements. So I do that on a monthly basis as another double check. Over the past 8 years, I've probably found maybe a handful of mistakes that, you point out to the business office and they correct them the next month. But it is a double, it's another layer of checks and balances that the state asks that we be done. I don't think I've ever discussed that with you all. I've just been doing it, and I happened to read it here, and it reminded me that you're going to want to appoint someone else to do that going forward. Okay.
Could that be rotated? Could that be shared? Just like we do the vouchers? And by the way, the vouchers, everybody, any one of these board members can see them every time. We just put a schedule down so we have 2 sets of eyes on it. I look at these all. Same with the supervisor's report. You get a monthly statement of this is what we allocated, this is what we use, this is what we have left, and it moves it on down. And if there's adjustments to be made, that's why we have the budget amounts, okay, as we all know. But that's something that I'm going to need help from one of you, 2 of you, whatever, okay? So we just put the right out there on that. And like I said, it's another set of eyes. We do the same thing actually with our resolutions. We do the same thing with vouchers. We have Laura look at a lot of them. We have Debbie look at the resolutions. We have a lot of different ways we do this, and every once in a while, very rarely, but something slips through the cracks. So and then when it gets caught, we make the adjustment. So that's food for thought. I look forward to all the volunteers who are going to do this and go from there.
Also included in that is a review of the type of funds that the town's monies are invested in. By law, we can only invest in certain things, and so, if you trust the bank does it the right way, but I do a monthly review of the types of investments that the funds are in to make sure that we're in compliance. So that's another thing that is part and parcel of this.
Nice party gift.
Not an alligator, I'm sure, raising their hand.
That's right.
That last one's really important because of the securitization rules of public money. because I've actually done audits for other towns. I won't say they were or were not in this county, and I won't name the town, where we found a lot of really serious problems and they had to switch banks. So I'm glad someone's looking at that. Mostly banks, as long as they just stay in something simple like treasury bills, it's easy.
Yeah.
But if they invest in certain things, then it's only considered 80% secured or 60% secured. All the different types of investments are classified based on risk. So if the town has for some reason, the bank just decides that, well, we're gonna move it here, you may find unexpectedly that 20% of your public money is not secured anymore and you're in violation.
And
So-
they do, they do reinvest, they'll invest in typically either treasury bills or agencies, and when those mature, they have to reinvest those funds. So, it's not, you look at it once and it's done, but then another.
So what's the adjustment then at that point? I mean, say you find an error in their investing.
If it's a case like that, you've got to notify the bank immediately that, they've
Right,
invested funds in.
The bank would have to add additional security to protect your public funds. They would either have to put in, 700,000 more shares in pork bellies, commodities they can't trade in, but I'm just using an example. Or they'd have to convert to treasury bills or something that's 100% secured.
Okay.
On that,
Don't ask me.
On that note,
Andrew Benson,
Yes.
Katrina Bakowitz.
Yes.
Robert Creed.
yes.
Doug Dake.
Yes.
Ed Levine.
Yes. Board member reports. Andra, want to lead off?
Sure, I already talked about the library, and the other one is the Lansing Youth Services. The program is going extremely well. This is a program for middle school kids, an after-school program, and it's sort of, as the Park and Rec Department knows, not every kid is going to do a sport, and so this is for kids who maybe feel left out, but they get into these after-school programs, whether it's an outdoor education one or Dungeons and Dragons is still going strong. That's another one, and it serves about 300 different kids, which is wonderful. And so we support it as a town, and I think it's one of the best uses of our money.
Agreed. Anything else? Okay, Robert.
I don't really have a formal report. I would welcome Chris to the ZBA. I think since I've been liaison to that board, I've been very impressed with the work they do. I think you'll really enjoy it. Wish you all the best on that board. I think you'll find it very interesting. For all of you, I've enjoyed my time working with you.
Ditto.
It went by fast. Guy's the only one I think that I've worked with the full 8 years. So it's all of you, including those that are no longer on the board and actually no longer in the room.
Yeah.
But, it goes by fast. There's a lot of good work being done here. I wish you all the best. Joe, welcome. Over the 8 years, I would say the best years have been the ones where we remember we all have our own opinions and, we listen to that.
I agree. Well, you're gracious as always. Thank you.
Thanks, Robert.
Other than that, no report.
We'll miss you, and
We will miss you.
you're welcome to.
To walk her through
You know what,
how to do this.
I'll have to remind myself what the experience is like down there.
I can't wait for Pillage of the Floor. This may take a while.
Just make them bring some poutine from Fargo every time he wants to speak.
And Robert, I want to remind you, you can always come back. Some of us keep coming back like bad pennies.
This is your third one, isn't it?
Third time.
Third time, yeah.
Okay, Doug.
I have nothing other than rec wrestling's starting up, so my nights are getting busier even yet, but that's fine. Enjoy doing it, and I enjoy doing it with my son more than anything. I have nothing with the Water Sewer Advisory Board since I haven't been to a meeting in several months because you guys changed the meeting on me. Not that I'm blaming you.
Thought you said it was okay. But anyways, okay.
I know, but I forgot. So, other than that, I want to thank Robert. It was great being on the board with you. So, and welcome Joe as well.
Absolutely. Trina?
I don't have much. Friends of South Point tries to do a couple of talks a year, 3 to 4. I think they've been managing on diverse subjects. The one coming up, I don't think we have a date yet. Maybe we do, I haven't heard, is on sturgeon, natural history of sturgeon in our lake. Should be interesting.
Could that also be posted on the website?
Yeah.
Eventually,
Have a date.
right? Chris is working with Dan
Okay,
to try to get
great.
more of the stuff on our website so that
Wonderful.
we have more information out there.
Excellent.
Okay.
That's right.
Couple things. The Bolton Point contract, which I've been working on as one of the commissioners, that's the 3-year agreement, labor agreement. That we have concluded negotiations. I think you might have been on the last one. It was unanimously approved by the workers. It will now be talked at the commission, and it'll come back to the individual municipalities. All 5 have to say yes. We will have a presentation January, February to show where we are with this and what direction we want to lead into. I'll let them give all the details as far as that goes. But at the end of the day, as I told them over and over again, it's how much do you have an increase do you have in your hand, you know, as far as that goes. And we're very fortunate to have a great set of workers there. They do a phenomenal job. Their morale is high, and I think, like here, it's a great place to work. So I think the workers are well taken care of. We ask a lot of them, but it works well. Of course, the new minimal amount comes into play in January 2, and then we do all our wonderful calculations, go from there, and have at it. We'll talk about the pavilion, proposed pavilion, probably in January or February. That's for the barbecue. Our dugouts are moving along. Mother Nature told us to take a break for a while, but we're still raising funds. If anybody wants to make a tax deductible contribution again. Talking to Cricket about doing some paving out front to address the storm drains and how they seem to be at a high point. And that's not throwing stones at people, something that we need to reconfigure, and it'd be a great time to do that if we could weave that in to doing the parking area up where we had the barbecue pit, with the pavilion to the other side of the road. We'll give you all different designs and instructions, and we're having input from all different barbecuers, and it'll be all in front for everybody else to do. And same with running water, electric, and improving the drainage over the bulkheads also. My understanding is that when there's a heavy rain, there's nothing but ground, it comes right down the road, so the drains aren't working properly either. Those are things we can talk about. Sewer meeting today, it is moving along. There's been some adjustments made, and when the time is appropriate, we will have an announcement on that as far as what the developers want to do privately. And once again, Robert, it's been fun 6 years. And you'll be missed. Joe, welcome you. My opinion is everybody makes a contribution. Everybody's good at something, and I look forward to moving this board ahead, just like we did tonight, on what could have been a very delicate subject. I thought at the end of the day, we move forward as a group. I don't like 3 to 2 votes, or 2 to 3 votes. I try to get a consensus for the middle, because at the end of the day, when I'm gone, it doesn't get driven one way or the other. Hopefully the board keeps moving forward in a positive manner, because it's all about serving the residents of Lansing. So having said that, is there anything you want to talk about, Guy?
No, just Robert, thank you. 8 years is a long time to serve at 23 cents an hour. You know, I think you did a lot of stuff that people didn't necessarily see, and I think that your strength. I mean, I work with boards all over the place. is just very, very even keeled. And, you know, whether you agree or disagree with something, you don't let temper and emotion. And I think that's provided important ballast for the board. And I think that's a skill in and of itself. So thank you for that. And Joe, welcome aboard. I really don't know you, but I certainly will come to in the next few months. But with that, I mean, you've seen the number of resolutions we've had in the last 3 months. I got nothing to say except I just want to go home for Christmas.
I did want to make one comment, because I did say I was going to comment on consolidated water district number 3. And where we're at right now is there is that strip that goes along Conlon. There has been more petition up there to the gully. George Fenner wanted to have be included in that. He went and got that petition. We have to go back to ag and markets to make sure that's appropriate because it's in farmland. Very similar like we had to do in Ray Still's land on Conlon Road was exposed because of the farmland. So that's where we're waiting. Then we're going to bring it back to the Water and Sewer Advisory Board in January if we get a definitive answer by then and see what they advise and moving forward from there. The addition of those properties will not increase or decrease the proposed EDUs as far as dollar amount per EDU, but I want to give you an update. That's as much as I can do. We probably have to come back, do another public hearing on that, do an informational session before we move forward with the advice of the Water and Sewer Advisory Board. But in the meantime, in all fairness, we've got number 4, looks like it's moving along. We've got number 5's coming in. If nothing else was on the plate, it would still probably take this long.
Maybe that's what I should.
But we are addressing it as fast as government will let us do it.
No, that's fine. Thank you for that update.
Having said that, I see no reason to go into working session or executive session. And I'd like to make a motion to go home to adjourn. Anyone second it? Second?
Second.
Third. All in favor?
Aye.
So be it.
5 years.